Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. Thanks for joining us today, everyone. We got another exciting What's New with Vetro webinar on the books for you today. And with that, we'll get started here. So let's meet the team today. Today, we're joined by Andrew Eubank and Pat Edwards. Many of you are familiar with these guys. Andrew's our Senior Director of Services and Sales Engineering. Pat's one of our product managers for Vetro Fiber Map. Really great panel today. Thanks for joining me, guys. Excited for what we're showing.
Good to
On
be
the
here.
agenda today, we're going to show you a bunch of things. So we're going to try to get right into it here. I won't take too much of your time, but some of the things today we're showing fiber paths table. We'll show you single sign-on, feature status in the network lifecycle, some updates to the network dashboard, plan delivery with Vetro. Lots of things. Really great one on the books for you today. And just want to remind you that as we go through, the chat will be live the entire webinar. Get your Q&A questions in. We're going to try to do a lengthy Q&A at the end if we have time. And then allegedly, there may be a giveaway for participation in there. So you didn't hear it from me, but it might be worth throwing a question in. With that, if you guys are ready, I'm going to pass over to Andrew to kick off our first demo.
Awesome. Thanks, Brock. I'm going to share my screen here, and if you can just give me a quick confirmation when everything looks hunky-dory, we'll get this thing rolling.
Yeah, it looks good there.
Fantastic. Great. So focused on the what's new, right, in Vetro, the first thing you always see when you log in is a map, right? And maps are great to know where your features are located, and they're integral to your success. But we here at Vetro, we recognize and we know that the real magic happens when you go a layer deeper. So understanding your strand level data. And that's the key to monetizing and really fully operationalizing your network, right? So we're purpose built for great fiber management, and not just the tubes, but the strands. So we have a variety of tools, and over the years, we've continually gotten deeper and more powerful in how those can be used. We started with the classic fiber manager, right? A great way to look at A and Z locations, to determine the splicing and the connectivity between, and to see what's happening. For just a quick refresher, I want to call out, I'm utilizing our new Vetro Hub. So all the functionality is there and nothing's changed. Sometimes it can look a little bit different. So Fiber Manager in my case is located over here on the left-hand side. And quickly just bringing that up, we get that really powerful A and Z trace view. I've started here at my cabinet. I'm going out to service locations. And we all know that we can kind of drag and drop, see what's happening, get a quick picture of what's going on, right? And that's great for a single piece of information. But we're always evolving. And something that we recently released is the fiber paths table, right? So by opening any network feature in Vetro, I'm going to select my cabinet here, for instance. I can access a really powerful tool that allows me to view in a tabular format my physical layout and connections. I do that here by selecting fiber paths, for instance, from my cabinet. And while it's loading, right, like, oh, look at that, there it is. I can figure out where each potential path of light starts and ends and what the key elements it passes through are. Like in the real world, though, the path will stop wherever splicing hasn't occurred or equipment isn't connected. So it's imperative to have those elements addressed as part of your workflow. But here I've got this fantastic tabular view, and it's really powerful. You might use this for things like verifying cable splicing. If you have an A and a Z, and it's not making it to that Z location, why not? You can see where that trace stops or starts. You can also access that same powerful trace view from the panel over to the side. And you can filter this data in really powerful ways. For instance, I can see that several of my paths of light start on an OLT at my central office in this design. Perhaps I want to narrow it down to just an OLT port. So I'm going to choose my start equipment port. We're going to look at 15 and hit apply. And it's going to show me that there are 46 paths of light or fiber paths that start at port 15 on my OLT. And I have this fantastic tabular view that I can sift through. I can see where those endpoints are. It looks like there's a ton that are service locations. It looks like there are some that end at a pedestal. Just fantastic pieces of information here. And of course, all of this information is exportable, right? So it's viewable in the system, and that's oftentimes the best way to access it, right? It's live, it's interactive. You get to use the trace views, but for those in the field that may need to access this on a piece of paper, you can export all this rich data. So regardless of whether your network is point to point, distributed, centralized, fiber to the node, fiber to the curb, whatever it is, or any combination. We give you this rich operational data that allows you to solve the complex problems that a large fiber network presents. So like mentioned, this can be open at any point on the network, or can be used to view things like allocation in a certain strand or a segment. So if I open up this lateral, I can view the same via my network analysis, the same information either on fiber paths or in this fiber allocation table, which shows me all the paths that pass through this segment. Really powerful stuff. Perhaps you actually just need to quickly generate an upstream view from a service location. That's easily done within Vetro as well. So if I open up my service location and I go to fiber paths, I get a really quick view. Where does it start? Where does it stop? And I can apply those same filters. This is perhaps not coincidentally served by OLT port 15, right? Here's my primary splitter. Here's my secondary splitter. Here's the lengths. And I can also illuminate the pass-throughs or areas where this information, this path goes through, but is not spliced. So, of course, something this powerful also begets really strong functionality, right? Data is great, but what do you do with it? Things like our quick connect tool are great next steps. For instance, if I want to go to this particular pedestal, the fiber paths tool enables quick connect. I can filter my pedestal by opening the fiber paths table. I'm going to remove my old filter. I'm going to say, just show me the paths of light or the fiber paths that make it to this pedestal. What are the fibers that are allocated here? Copy my pedestal name, hit apply, and I can see that I have 4 fibers to this particular pedestal. And I've gone ahead and reserved them because I know that I'm going to allocate them to 4 customers, right? Editing those statuses is super quick. Just make sure you have your global edit mode toggled, go into your fiber paths table, and I'm just shift clicking down and I can edit those statuses. I'm going to leave those as reserved for now. And now I know that I've got some homes here in the area that I actually need to get hooked up. Here's my pedestal. Let's take a look and see what's going on here. By using my quick connect functionality, I can circle homes or service locations, and I can automatically create pieces of equipment like ONTs at the service location. I can automatically draw my drops, and if there's existing fiber cable there, I can go ahead and use those drops. And then I can connect via those reserved circuits all the way back to my central office. Let's take it a step further, right? We realize that as your key system of record, there's a ton of cross-department utilization of Vetro as a tool. And we're always building things to accommodate your important operational needs. We recently released a functionality called straight line diagrams, or SLDs. There's a ton of goodness embedded in this, but some of the key things that SLDs are meant to address are understanding logically what network component comes next, helping illustrate things like fault detection, field maintenance, or capacity planning. This tool might be something that could help your network operations center better understand your complex network's layout without having to delve piece by piece into a complex map. Let's open one up here at the cabinet, which is done by accessing it here. So by clicking on the cabinet, I can go down to my network analysis tool, select the straight line diagram. Or In our new Vetro Hub, this icon over here is another way of opening up the straight line diagrams. For the sake of time, I've went ahead and opened one up at the cabinet. I'm going to switch to my tab, and it starts looking like this. Again, this can be opened from any network point and expanded to view the upstream and downstream visibility of your network. So let's just extend this cabinet's connections. And you can very quickly see this is a logical diagram with a ton of really rich information. I can see the length between my network points. I can see what homes are connected. And there's even more. So I can toggle my map and get a sense for, okay, what are we really looking at here? I can collapse nodes and it'll remove those segments of the map. And then I can also do the similar path of light trace, and it'll pop open in this pane over to the left, right? Like my A side, B sides on the ports, my fiber numbers, splitters that are involved in the configuration, all the way back to my cabinet. Or depending on which node you're utilizing, perhaps all the way back to your central office in your OLT. But wait, there's more. That's the classic line, right? So I can also toggle my fiber allocation labels. And by zooming in, I can see the length, but also what fibers have been allocated, or perhaps using the industry terminology, what has been pushed to this location. In this case, 1 through 12 have been allocated. And of course, being a single fiber drop to the home, it's just fiber number 1 that's been allocated. So SLDs, imagine this, may even be used to illustrate redundancy in your routes and can be used to manage large, complex networks through robust search and filter functionality over here. So while I just clicked a certain point to open it on the map, I can filter and look at my terminations and do a whole host of additional functionalities with SLDs through what we've already built in. Navigating through Vetro's connectivity and visualization has never been easier, and we're committed to really helping logically solve your most complex issues with your fiber network. Remember, please post any questions or answers you have in the chat. With this, I'm going to stop my share and pass it back.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew. Great demo. Just a quick point of clarification, folks. If you're trying to submit questions, please make sure you're doing so using the Q&A button within your Zoom window. That'll get them through to us easiest. And with that, I'm going to pass over to Pat next for a few more demos.
All right, thanks, Brock. All right, I'm just going to share my screen real quick and I'll get this. We'll continue the show on the road. So I've got a few topics to go through today. Thanks, Andrew, for kicking things off. I love watching that demo. I think the fiber paths table and the straight line diagram are great new features, very interactive. The first feature I'm going to talk about is less exciting and interactive for a lot of you. But I think there are certain people in your organization that would be very excited to hear that we've now got single sign-on, or SSO. So SSO is something that's used to increase organizational security. It's something that you may already use with other software products that you use within your broader ecosystem at your company. If you're finding that you have been asked to log into a certain piece of software using your Microsoft account, that's a good indication, or another account like it, that's a good indication that you're already using SSO. And so it's worth just checking in with your IT team and letting them know that Vetro now supports single sign-on, and that might be something that they can use to improve the security posture within your organization. We have had a lot of feature requests for SSO. We've also had feature requests for two-factor authentication. Vetro does not have 2FA, but by using SSO, you can actually leverage your IDP's own 2FA solution and get to that additional layer of security in that way. So yeah, that's SSO in a nutshell. Really makes it easy to log into Vetro. You don't have to keep track of all your different passwords. You just have that one identity provider that you use every day. If you've got any questions about this, please drop them into the chat. That rumor about there being swag on the table for Q&A participation is real. There is swag coming your way if you ask questions. Okay, so next topic. I'm really excited about this one is plan delivery. This is a feature We've been working on it for a while. A lot of customers have been asking it very, very loudly for a while. And so we were really happy to get this out there. What plan delivery allows you to do is to either, depending on whether you're an engineering firm or an ISP, it allows you to deliver or accept and then iterate on network designs faster when you've got multiple companies working on a single project, which is often the case. We know we work with a lot of customers, ISPs, that have got, sometimes, 7 different engineering services partners, and a lot of them use Vetro. And so having a single way to get data from the engineering services company to the ISP is really important. And it's important to be able to do that in a simple way. I think this diagram gives a good explanation for why we need a simple way to do network design delivery. On the right, we've got a pathway that goes through a lot of different other pieces of software that can be used to transform a network design produced by a company using one technology stack and transforming it into a format that can be ingested into Vetro. And that works, that can be done, but it does take a lot of extra time. And that time can lead to delays in revenue, but it can also introduce errors when you're manually making adjustments. So we made it easy. We just made it possible to export a plan from Vetro with all of the connectivity information, and then import that same plan into another instance of Vetro. And so now I'm going to give a quick little demonstration of what that looks like. So the first part of this demonstration I'm going to do from the perspective of an ISP. So let's say I'm an ISP and I have had my engineering services company provide me with a new deliverable for one of the plans that we've contracted them to design. What I can do is just go into the add data section of Vetro. Usually you just use this for bringing in regular geospatial data, and you can continue to do that. But now when you open up a .vetro file, which is, and I'll show how that can be generated in the second part of the demo. When you open a .vetro file, you will see immediately a bunch of different layers come through. Before I get into that, I'm going to just set the destination project. So I might just call this like new project, and I'll call this one plan A. And then what we see here is all of the layers from so this is the source layer. This is the layer that's come from the engineering firm. And this is the target layer. These are the layers that are already in your Vetro instance. Now, some of these layers are not going to be relevant to you, perhaps. Maybe you don't need the zones or the parcel data. Change sets are a different feature that we'll talk about in another webinar. And maybe you don't need construction areas, but you do need all this other data. So I actually set this up earlier, and because of that, I can go ahead and straight away and hit the Start Import button. And now when I hit that button, it immediately just starts pulling in all of that data. It takes a little bit to load. And the reason I was able to do that with just deselecting a couple of layers and then hitting Start Import was because Vetro saves the mapping. So if you've got an engineering firm that is designing their networks using different names or terminology, and you want to maintain your existing terminology, you can set up that mapping, and the .vetro file includes an identifier that allows your instance of Vetro to remember how to deal with that data. So you can have different schemas coming from different providers, but map it all to your consistent standard, your way of doing things. So a different way that workflow might have looked, if I bring this in again, and I'll go new project, and let's call this one Plan B. And you can create a new planner project like I just did using that Create New Plan button, or you can choose an existing plan. It'll import into that fine. So the first time you set this up, you may have a couple of little issues that you need to work through. So if I just go into the exact mapping here, we can see every individual attribute that's being mapped. And these have all been, a lot of these get auto detected. If the name is the same in one instance to another, as it often is, that'll get automatically mapped. But for some things that aren't obvious, you can set that up. So you might have, a text field called status, mapping that to construction status. So if I just click and drag that over and add that to the mapping, so what that'll do is allow you to map the status field from your engineering services provider, but you call it construction status, perhaps. And then when we go back to the layers here, we actually get an error. And what that error is saying is that the status that the engineering company uses has an additional field in it that you don't have in your status, in your construction status. And that's a really important error, because what we want to make sure that our customers are able to do is maintain a set of standards that they think are important and not have those standards changed by customers without them realizing it. The way to get around this is really just to go into your attribute table and add that extra status if you want it to be. Or we can have the engineering company remove it from the deliverable. But or you could just ignore this particular attribute as well. So that's what I'm going to do in this case, is go in and just remove this mapping that is not valid, and then continue with the import. But there is definitely a way you can just go in and add that extra status to your construction status field, and you can benefit from what the engineering company has designed in that way. And that's something you really just do at project establishment. Is once you kick off a project, our recommendation is that the engineering firm and the ISP work together, make sure that they've configured this mapping, so they go into each of these layers and just go through and make sure that they're happy with all the fields that are mapping from the source to the target. Work on that together, and then once that's done in that project establishment, every time that the engineering firm delivers a new design to the ISP, it really is as simple as just going in and hitting start import, and it will use the mapping that it used previously. Okay, so that's the workflow from the ISP's point of view if you've accepted a design. I will actually just go back and show you what that ingested design looks like, just to wrap that section up. So once you've ingested this design, you can go into the network, and this is a network that's got some connectivity. So I imported this project, right? But if I go and open up the fiber paths table that Andrew has already demoed, so effectively, it's just going to, because it's got all the splicing connectivity and everything brought in, and the fiber paths table can use that, it takes in all that information, and it can immediately generate all of the fiber paths that were exactly the same as what was in that source instance. So the engineering firm may have already gone through and validated all the splicing in their network using the fiber paths table. And now you can do the same. You can go in and open up the fiber paths table, see all the fiber paths that exist in your network because of all that splicing. And then you can go ahead and start creating circuits, which is really easy. You just go in and hit, as Andrew showed, just go in and hit the edit button here, and then change that to a circuit, and you're away. There'll all be now valid circuits in your network. All right, so yeah, that finishes the ISP part of the demo. But what if you're an engineering firm? What does the workflow look like? It's also quite simple, and it fits into the standard kind of workflows that you might already be used to. So I'll show first an example, a really simple example. So if I go to this plan over here, Oregon, and the Oregon build. So let's say I finish this network design, I go in, I hit export. And if you're an organization that has plan delivery enabled, you'll see this complete format section with a .vetro format. You hit OK. It does some validation, so it makes sure that there are no missing endpoints in your network, that there are no stray junctions, really just making sure that for the benefit of your customer, this is a network that's going to be importable into Vetro, and is going to be able to have all of the Vetro contained by relationships and connectivity relationships working from the get-go. They're not going to have to do any extra work there to tidy up the design. It makes sure that the splicing is just intrinsic to that particular plan, so it's not connecting to plans that they don't have. And it just makes sure that any Slack loops have all of the parent cables that need to be included within that plan as well. So again, so that once that ISP takes delivery of this network, it looks exactly the same in their instance as it does in yours. I then just hit continue to export, and it downloads that into a .vetro file. It has the instance ID from your organization, so that if that organization has imported it before, it'll immediately work in their instance. So that's the simple case. What does it look like if it's not simple? Well, if I go to this Oregon Forest City Phase 2 design here, and I try to export, choose the .vetro format. Now this design is not ready to export, and I can see that immediately. So it's got missing endpoints, so that means there are some cables that don't have structures or splice closures at the end of them. And there's some splicing to different plans. So I know in this area here, I've spliced some cables from Phase 2 into Phase 1. When you are delivering these networks, sometimes the ISP will need to handle that final level of connectivity back into a particular cabinet or something like that. So yeah, it gives you that warning. It also just shows you where these issues are. So it uses the same validation feature that is used in our build tool. So you can really easily go in and say, okay, where am I missing endpoints, and zoom to them on the map just like that. When you follow this workflow, it makes it really easy to ensure that, just going back to this slide, that this path from a completed network design to the ISP is as simple as possible. We try to take as much of this difficulty out of it as we can, and build tools like that mapping that remembers how to map from one schema to another. We've tried to make that really easy to use. And so, yeah, we'd love to hear about any success stories you've had with this feature so far. And if you haven't had the chance to use it, please give it a go. All right, the next feature that I'll be going through is the network dashboard and lifecycle stages. So the network dashboard we released last year. It's been out for a little while. One of the first feature requests we had for it was that customers wanted to be able to get a view of the status of certain things in their network dashboard. So it was a really good way of demonstrating how many of something there was, or the total lengths of things that there were. But yeah, our customers wanted to be able to get a view of what the progress for certain things was, how many service points were operational versus in design. But with the addition of this feature, the workflow is really the same. You go in, you create a dashboard, you hit the share button, and then you either email that link to a colleague or you bookmark it so that you can come back to it later and have this dynamic dashboard. So I've got a dashboard I prepared earlier that I'll just jump over to here. Okay, so this is my network dashboard, and again, it's still got the total lengths of all of the lines in this set of plans that I've selected. It's got all the network points, and this URL is something that you can send to a colleague or bookmark, and it'll refresh with any updates to the network, and I'll show you how you can do that. But I do want to draw attention to the statuses section here. So if I look at this section here, I've got 9% of my service locations in the operational stage. And this is using a particular status field in Vetro called the feature status, and that's what's been newly introduced into Vetro that came out late last year. So I want to talk a little bit about how you can leverage that feature status feature. The feature status feature is involved in a few different parts of the application. I'll start with just going back to Vetro itself. So if I go back over to my plans list, projects and plans. All right, so what I'm going to do is go to plan phase 2, and if I'm in edit mode, I can change the phase of this plan. And we've redesigned the phases in a way that links directly to the feature status. So that if I go to change the phase from construction to as built, so let's say you hear back from your field team, yep, we finished constructing that plan, that's good to go. You can immediately get a message saying, okay, cool, you've marked that as built. Do you want to mark every feature within this plan as operational? So you can do that by hitting the primary blue button, or if you don't want to update the features, you want to do that manually, you can still do that and continue on with your workflow. In this case, I'm going to hit the set feature status to operational. So every feature in that plan is now going to be marked as operational. And now if I go back to my network dashboard and I hit refresh, I can see the service location was previously at 9% operational, and now it's at about 40% operational. And that was really easy. All I did was change the plan phase, but the service location has been increased to operational. All the drops have been updated, and so you can immediately get a sense of how your network is continuing to progress to being fully operational. So the feature status also has some ways of being leveraged within FiberMap itself, not just within the dashboard as I was showing. So if I go to my layers section, I'm going to just change my map theme to take advantage of this. So I've set up a map theme that visualizes the feature statuses in the network. So in my case here, I've got all my layers set up so that my planning areas are blue. Anything that's in design, I've got gray, construction is orange, and then operational is green. And so if I go now to my plan, and I'm just going to change my phase 2 back to, what was it before? It was in construction. So if I go play phase 2 construction, I'm going to change everything back to, construction. And now we'll see that all turn back to that orange color there. If I just toggle that back, or back to green rather. Then flip that back. Might just have to refresh that one. Yeah, there we go. So everything's now in that orange construction status there. I did just have to refresh in order for that to flow through. So you can configure this quite a lot. You don't have to have everything going. If you change a plan phase to as built, you don't have to have everything marked as operational. You can configure that. So to configure that, I'm just going to jump to the dashboard where you can configure a whole host of things in Vetro. And one section that's new is this lifecycle management section. So we've got the plan phases here. These tie back to, in my case, we've got these 4 lifecycle stages in Vetro: planning, design, construction, and operational. These are not configurable, but you can add a plan phase that maps to it. So you might have a plan phase called, archived or, retired. That could be a plan phase that you want to use. If I hit enter, then that will allow me to choose which lifecycle stage, and maybe that's in the operational stage. If you no longer want to have this plan phase label, you just go ahead and delete it there. And same for the feature statuses. I can go in and create a serviceable feature status label, and I'm going to tie that into the operational stage and save that. And so now if I go back to Vetro to change the plan phase, I go to change this from construction to as built, and I can change it to operational. And I'll need to refresh. But when I refresh this page, I'll now have that serviceable feature status available for me to update. So go back in here, go to edit mode. So I've got that serviceable option now as well. And I won't hit that because that'll, I don't have a style configured for that right now. But yeah, you can configure that in any way that you really want there. I'll just give you a high-level overview of the kind of the way that plan phase interacts with network lifecycle and how that interacts with feature status. So we've got this lifecycle stage here. This is consistent across your instance. This isn't something that's configurable, but all the plan phases are configurable. When you change a plan phase, it ties back, it relates to that lifecycle stage. Same deal with the feature status. It relates to the lifecycle stage. We added this so that we could start having functionality designed around some of these lifecycle stages. And the first thing we did with that was, some functionality in the network dashboard that I showed. But yeah, we'll have more to come there. Okay, so I also just wanted to show how the plan phase feature status can be used to generate shared views as well. So we've got that all happening in the map in FiberMap. But just like any other features, any other style in Vetro, I can go in and create a shared view based on that theme. And just like before, when I changed that plan phase and it showed up differently in my network dashboard and it showed up differently in FiberMap, if I was to change this that plan phase and change all the feature statuses again in my network, it'll immediately change my shared view, or you'll have to refresh. But that allows you to maintain a live dashboard that's got that gives all the stakeholders in your network some visibility into the progress of your network build out. All right, so I'm going to continue on with the demonstration, but if you've got any questions, please drop them in the Q&A. I can see that that we've had a lot of questions come in over the last few minutes, which is great. So we'll make sure to leave some time for that at the end. But I do just want to show one more feature, and that's a feature called density optimization. And so density optimization, we added this late last year for a couple of reasons. One was to improve the visual experience within Vetro. We pride ourselves on allowing our customers to make maps that are easy to read. And the other reason we added it was it actually improves application performance when you use it. So I'll give a little demonstration of that now. So the best way to demonstrate the value of this is actually just to show you a side-by-side comparison with these two styling options. So I've made a shared view of the same project in Vetro with two different styling options. On the right here is our default style. It's the same point data set. This is a set of FCC towers, or towers that we've got from the FCC in Arkansas. So on the right, we can see that we don't have quite the level of detail as we have on the left. And the reason we do that is in Vetro, when you're using the default style, it actually samples the points, and so it doesn't show all of them. And that it does that just to make the map a little bit snappier to use and move around. But then when you zoom in, you also notice these points stay the same size. And as you zoom in, you start to get that extra detail. You're getting the full picture. But when you're zoomed out, you don't get the full picture. Compared to when I'm looking at it on the left here, if I look at Fayetteville, we've got, you can clearly see that there's a concentration of towers close to what looks like some major roads or highways. And same with Little Rock. We can see, where there are those concentrations of towers. And that's a little harder to see in the default view of Vetro. So how can you use this feature? It's pretty straightforward. So we'll just go into Vetro here, and I'll go back to Fiber Map. So in my case, I'm gonna go look at the Arkansas points that I used for that shared view. So, and I'll just make sure I'm in the correct theme as well. So I used this different theme, the visualizing premise points theme, and I'll go to the correct layer, which is FCC towers. All right. So this is exactly the same theme that's driving this shared view here on the left. The previous theme that I was using is what was driving it on the right. Now, just to show how I created this, I'll go in here and go default. So this is the standard way that points are visualized in Vetro as of now. But you can go in and use this density optimization setting, and we recommend that you do this for all of your point layers. The major reason we recommend it is it can improve the visual appearance of your maps. The secondary is actually network Vetro app performance. So if you're using a lot of layers or plans in Vetro, this is the best way for you to avoid some of the performance issues you can run into there when you're visualizing a lot of data, especially point data. You can fine tune this. So as you can see on the left here, I've got a little more detail when I'm zoomed out. I've done that by having the upper bound of my points just be a little bit larger. And I'm just going to turn off the transparency as well. So I have this set to 30, and I'm doing this for this particular use case, right? Your use case might be different. And so you can play around with these parameters here. I'll increase the lower icon size a little bit as well. And so you can see now that if I zoom out here, the points are kind of small, but when I zoom in, they're all there. Like there's no points that are disappearing like they are in the other view. And you can also change the levels at which the scaling kicks in. So I'm going to increase this to zoom level 19. And the way to think about these numbers is they actually relate to the zoom number up here, right? So the zoom feature in Vetro, you can always see what zoom level you're at as this first number. And that can kind of help you set up these scaling boundaries. So I've now got that set to 19. I'll set this one to 15. And I found that this was a good way to view this data set. But you should definitely play around with this for different data sets in Vetro. So now as I zoom in, I have clarity on my data at every zoom level, really. I can also do this just in a regular plan in Vetro. So if I go ahead and go back to Forest City, I'll change to the back to my feature status data set and go to that back to my favorite plan in Forest City. And you might have a different way you want to do this. So one of the things that you maybe couldn't tell in this view here is that these are all circles, right? But the way that this density optimization actually works is it uses circles at those when you're really zoomed out kind of scales. So I'll go in here, change the service location style. I have to go into show advanced settings, show advanced scale settings here. And I can, again, I'm just going to set this to 30, set this to 9. I'm going to decouple them so it will scale them at different stages. And because I'm using density optimization, it's going to turn off the point sampling, and it's going to use a circle at low zoom. So, oops, not 390. That's too big. Let's do 30. So as I zoom out, you can see at a high zoom level, when I'm zoomed all the way in, you want to see these big big addresses here. When I zoom out, they become circles. And I'm just going to adjust it a little bit more, make this one 19. I think this one was at 15 was nice, so that when I zoom in past about 15, at this point here, they turn back into little houses, which is great. When you zoomed out, at a level that's less than 15, you can't really tell that they're houses anyway. They go back to being circles, and that's what makes it really, really snappy when you're viewing this map. So again, if you're finding you've got some performance issues when you're looking at large data sets, have a look at the density optimization things. This also works for line data as well. If you want to have lines appear thicker at a high zoom level and thinner at a low zoom level when you're zoomed out, you can do that as well in the advanced scale section of your themes as well. All right, a couple more things to go through and talk about. But yeah, any questions about this, please reach out. We'll either answer it on the Q&A or we'll get in touch and show you how you can do it yourself in your own instance. So as Andrew mentioned, and as I was doing through this demo, we're using the Vetro Hub now. This is the primary way that we're training all of our new customers. We do all of our demos within the Vetro Hub. It's at a different URL, and that's really the only difference from an access point of view. So you can see I've gone to app.vetro.io instead of the regular fibermap.io. There are some visual differences and I think improvements. So one of the great things about this is if I go into edit mode, I've got my plan list here. I can go to select the plan that I want to edit. And I can also in that same menu hit the zoom to button without needing to dig around in here. So if I've got a feature open like this drop and I see, oh, I'm in edit mode, so let's get out of that. But I see that I'm in plan phase 2 and I want to edit that and zoom to it, I can immediately do that. I just go here and, plan phase 2, zoom to that plan. And that's really easy. I don't have to go back and dig around in the plan selection list. There's a few other nice improvements that I like about this view, but that's my favorite improvement there. Oops. Not that slides, these slides. So yeah, some UX changes, some improvements. One important thing I want to call out is we haven't changed anything related to the API. So if you're using or your organization uses our API, even though that we're going to app.vetro.io for the front end, nothing changes on the back end. So all of your data stays in exactly the same format. There's no movement of data here. This is something you can use at the same time as using fibermap.io. So yeah, I recommend you give it a go. If you're trying to find it, and you haven't used it before, you can go back to the original experience following this button here. And if you get off this call and you can't remember the app.vetro.io, you can just go in here to the settings here and hit try new experience. And that takes you to this fiber map here. Everything looks exactly the same. All your themes are all in there as before. It's just a different way of accessing it. The reason we did that is so we can add things like the network dashboard and straight line diagrams all within the same application without having to interrupt the regular flow of Vetro. So any concerns you've got with using it, or if you want a training session on how to best use it within your organization, please reach out and we're happy to do that. We want to get everyone using the new app.vetro.io so that you can take advantage of all the new features like SLDs and network dashboard that are coming out. All right, final thing for me, I want to do a little bit of a promotion on the resources that we've got at Vetro. Our platform literacy team has been on fire lately. All the new features we put out over the last 6 months have all got videos and documentation and walkthroughs that you can use. So if I go back to the app here, we can see we've got this resource center. If you ever see an announcement and dismiss it because you're doing something and you don't want to be interrupted, that's fine. You can go back and find announcements later in this section. So many of you saw that the demo, the advertisement for this webinar that we're doing right now in Vetro. So you could have gone back and found that link here. You can go back and find the video for how to best use SLDs in here as well. You can go and see what has been released lately. So you can and get a walkthrough on it as well. So anything we've released in the last 6 to 9 months is going to be in there. You can go in and read what we put out when we put out these new features. And then there's also a lot of walkthroughs you can activate as well. So if you wanted a walkthrough of how to use the Vetro Hub, you can go to this new UI walkthrough. And yeah, Jamie's done a great job of putting this walkthrough together. It just shows you at a high level, what this new app has, what it doesn't have. Well, it doesn't not have anything. It has everything that we had before and a bit more. But yeah, it'll show you how to use this new interface if you want some guidance without having to get in contact with the support team. The Help Center is another great resource. So the demo that Andrew gave today, I think, was excellent, and it's got an article that a lot of what he went through is also contained in this article here as well, if you wanted to go back through that. So it introduces the fiber manager, fiber paths table, and some of the concepts there, and it shows how it works with Quick Connect, just like he did. It also goes into detail on how to use circuit editing, all in the context of this new world where we have fiber paths and not just circuits. And then the other thing I wanted to show is the Vetro Vision section of the Help Center. So you can find so many videos on how to use Vetro. So there is a detailed walkthrough of how to use SLDs with callouts of every. So if you think, oh, how do I go in and collapse the node button in a SLD? Well, there's a link to that specific section of the video here. Every video that Jamie has made has all of these little chapters within them. So I encourage you to go through and find these videos, look at them, share them, bookmark them. They're such a great resource for you to learn all of the little features that you may have missed in Vetro, or give you a reminder on how to use the features you are familiar with. All right, so that's everything from me. I can see the questions are stacking up. So yeah, please keep them coming. We'll send you some swag. I hope you enjoyed this demonstration, and I hope that you can get out and use some of these new features soon. So yeah, Brock, back to you.
Thanks, Pat. Great demo. All right. Moving forward, everybody, just a couple of housekeeping items to finish up. Quick call out of all of our events coming up. We've got a few big ones on the agenda. We've got Connected America next week, Connected North following after. We'll see you at Fiber Connect, ISE Expo, all of our usual big events. If you're going to be at any of these, please reach out. We'd love to see you. We'll have a booth at most of these. We'll have a team down there ready to say hello and answer any of your questions. And with that, we are getting tight for time, so we're going to dive right into our Q&A. Headed into the question box here. First one from Alan. Thanks, Alan. With the straight line diagram, could opening the splice diagram for cases and equipment be added?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and take this this first question. Thanks again, Alan. So the straight line diagram is not editable today. We want to make sure that it's a representation of the information that's on Vetro Fiber Map, right? And in that way, we make sure that it's live, and we make sure that people can't accidentally get in and mess things up, right? So I would say today, right, we don't intend to add the splice diagram to the straight line diagram, and that may be better accessed either directly in the platform or through the fiber paths table that we showed. But phenomenal question.
Awesome. Looking through here, what should we do next? How about this one? Will importing data from a .vetro file also bring in the fiber assignments and splicing or circuits?
I can take that. It brings in all of the splicing detail. And so when you bring in all the splicing detail, it will generate all the fiber paths that would be generated from that as well. It doesn't bring in circuits. So we do have some feature requests for that. So I'll take that as another insight. But yeah, right now you can't export circuits. But what you can do, right, is that because it's generating all the fiber paths, you can go in and select all the fiber paths in the fiber paths table from the top of your network. So you can go into an OLT and start just bulk creating circuits in that way. I think it was the allocations and splicing. So yeah, the allocations will come through as well because of that splicing coming in.
Awesome. And on a related topic, using the import-export feature in plan delivery, can this be used to back up Vetro design iterations and re-import them to restore to a previous iteration?
I'll take that one too. That's not the recommended use case here. It uses, I guess, that format that it could be used for that in the future. So I guess that's why you asked that. You kind of connected those dots. But in this case, we're really recommending it just for the plan delivery use case because it doesn't have circuits and because it doesn't have inter-plan splicing. We just feel like it's not going to be the best solution for backing up network data like that. But yeah, happy to chat more about that if you've got some thoughts on that.
Awesome. And then one more on plan delivery. So is this file format for .vetro available? Yes, it is. Thinking about how this can be used to import data from engineering firms that do not use Vetro.
Oh, I'll take that one actually. So it's not an open format. It's a proprietary format. Yeah, at this stage we're just keeping it something that you can export from Vetro and import into Vetro. We do that, mostly because we want to make sure that we maintain forward and backward compatibility. And so yeah, we're keeping that as a proprietary format for now. But yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts on that more. So maybe I'll reach out and yeah, hear about what you've got in mind later.
Awesome. Yeah, good to see so much interest in these new this new plan delivery. What else have we got here? Over to the network dashboard. Is there a way under network lines, under the network line summary to show the breakout of placement of UG and aerial?
No, there is not, but that is a very common feature request that I would love to address. So yeah, not at this stage. We added the feature status partly as an answer to that. Some customers wanted a way of like having that further breakdown. But like, yeah, the one after that was basically having the attribute level breakouts. So yeah, glad to hear you bring that one up.
Awesome. Let me see. I think we got time for one more here. Are there any future plans to have automated staking sheets generated from the map? So material sheets, construction units, anything like that.
Material sheets, staking units. So nothing I mean, we've got the materials and expenses section, we've got the bill of materials, but it doesn't, I understand that doesn't kind of integrate with Mapbook in a way. So not at this stage, but we should talk about some other solutions we've got that may help you in the construction and fielding kind of workflows you're looking at. So I definitely want to I'm glad you're asking about that. I definitely want to talk more about it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your questions, everyone. I can see a few more still coming in, but we are at time. We've got a team working to answer the ones we couldn't get to in the chat here. Those of you we don't get to, expect an email from us shortly with an answer. And then thanks again, everyone, for joining us today. It was good to have you on, and we'll be in touch soon. And special thanks again to Pat and Andrew for presenting today. And those of you that threw a question in, you've been entered into a draw to win a nice pair of Vetro socks. So thanks for your participation, and have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.